What's up guys, you're watching JayzTwoCents, and this holiday season, if you're looking at building your first computer or maybe asking for a computer from Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny or whoever it is that you celebrate this holiday season, it can be a little bit daunting trying to pick parts from all of these boxes and all of these motherboards and processors, and just so much it starts to cave in on you and you get terrified and you don't know how to choose your parts. So today I'm going to walk you through the way I would spend $1,000 to build your own PC. Now, of course, there are a lot of these guides already all over the internet. I mean, you've got great YouTubers out there already giving you this information, but people have been asking me for my opinion on holiday builds and parts guides and the way that I would spend certain amounts of money. So that's what we're doing today. We're taking a look at the way that I would spend $1,000. Now, there may be some parts on here that you don't agree with. There may be some parts on here that other YouTubers have said, don't go with that, I don't like it. And that's perfectly okay. This is entirely my opinion. There may be some parts on here you choose to change with something else, and maybe you like the build, but there's a couple of things you would change. By all means, do that. Use this as kind of a backbone or a template to build your own computer and choose some parts this holiday season, and take it for what it is. This is just the way that I would spend the cash. Okay, now for the processor on this build, I decided to go with the AMD 8350. Now whoa, before you start throwing rocks at me and lighting pitchforks on fire, hear me out on this. A lot has changed over the last year when it comes to processors. And AMD, although they had no intentions of competing with Intel when it comes to the high-end gaming PC market, kind of accidentally fell into the position where they are now. But with the new consoles using 8-core AMD APUs, and it really opened up a huge future market for 8-core and 6-core processors, to where now developers are really able to tap into the unused power of hyper-threading and 8-core processors today. So what happened was AMD really got kicked up into the higher end market with these processors. And when it comes to streaming and encoding, the 8350 was already a very strong processor. So before you start saying, no, AMD's for poor people, Jerry, aka Barnacuda, I'm talking to you, bro. The AMD 8350 for less than $200 now is just really hard to beat. And I can't really recommend an Intel build that's a 4-core processor without hyper-threading in this price point. The price to performance of the AMD is just amazing. Now, to keep the 8350 cool, which is kind of a notoriously warm processor, I've decided to go with the Hyper 212 Evo from Cooler Master. It is a very well-tested, tried and true cooler that's been all over the market, used on so many different builds, and the reviews just speak for themselves. It's just a beast of a cooler. It's so well proven. Just go look at any reviews on Newegg or any other website and you'll see that you're not going to find any other cooler that is this strong for this inexpensive. Now for the motherboard on this build, I would go with the ASRock 970 Extreme 3. Some people may be wondering why I would choose a 970 chipset over a 990 FX. Well, the bottom line is, if you're not planning on using multiple graphics cards in the future, the 990 FX chipset really is wasted. Now, this build for $1,000 isn't going to be heavy overclocker friendly. So because of that, you could still do a mild overclock with the 970, but you save about $30 to $40 over the 990 FX models of ASRock and other competing brands. It gives you all the features you need. It's got a great built-in NIC card. It's got decent built-in audio, plenty of USB 3.0, plenty of USB ports, and it's got all the functions that you would want for a gamer build, and it has some advanced usage in there that you may like to use, like the UEFI BIOS and some things to get familiar with before you start bumping up to a higher-end motherboard. For the price, it really can't be beat. Now for the RAM in this build, I would personally go with the AData XPG V2 or V2 RAM. And we're going with 8 gigabytes, 2 times 4 gigabyte sticks. I chose this RAM because the XPG line is a gaming line of RAM, and AData's really been pushing hard on getting their gamer line up and running, and the reviews on this RAM is actually very decent, and it's not that expensive whatsoever. RAM is one of those things where, if you've watched my video about how much RAM do you need and how fast does your RAM need to be, you don't need to go with extremely fast RAM. So that's why in this build I chose going with 1600 megahertz RAM. So for data transfer and hard drive storage on this build, I decided to go with a main drive. It's an SSD. It's 128 gig Samsung 840 EVO, an amazingly fast SSD with 500 gig write and read speed. That's incredibly fast. Now, because we know 128 gig solid state drive is not even a pipe dream for having enough space for all of your programs and games you're going to want to put in this build, we're going to have to put a second hard drive in here for some of the less common stuff that's used in your computer and games that maybe you don't care how fast they load versus a long loading game like Skyrim or Battlefield. So for that, I decided to go with the Barracuda 7200 RPM. It's a 1 terabyte, 64 megabyte cache hard drive. It's very, very fast. Barracuda is a very proven name. 7200 RPM is a very fast mechanical drive, and it's going to be more than enough oomph to give you the read-write speeds you need to access your commonly used programs and games without really slowing down your system at all. Now we move on to the part that I know you guys have been really wondering about. What graphics card would Jay put in a $1,000 computer? Well, this is the perfect time for you to be building your $1,000 computer, because now companies like AMD and Intel are really starting to fight it out and compete, because there's no longer a gap between NVIDIA being top dog or AMD being top dog. All the cards are out on the market. It's the holiday season, sales are coming up, and all gloves are off when it comes to the aggressiveness of putting a graphics card in your system at a price that's not going to absolutely break the bank. So for this $1,000 build, I chose to go with the R9 280X from Gigabyte. Later on this year, when games like Battlefield 4 start adopting Mantle and coming out with updates that are Mantle friendly, you're going to start seeing AMD inch ahead and inch ahead at the same price point once again. This is actually good news. We need graphics cards to keep leapfrogging over the top of each other, because it forces prices down, it forces a price competition, which really makes us as consumers win in the end. We get better quality products at a lesser price because they want your money and my money and Barnacuda's money. I mean, look at his man room. He's got plenty of money to spare. So that's what I would do. I would do the R9 280X from Gigabyte. And I chose the Gigabyte model because it's got a very quiet fan arrangement on there. It's got a very beefy cooler, and it's going to give you quiet and very fast gaming for only $300. Now, when it comes to a case for this build, I'm recommending the N600 mid-tower case from Cooler Master. Now, the reason why I choose this case is that it has lots and lots of airflow. You're going to see that on my channel in a bit, as I'm going to be doing a review of this case. But hear me out on this. For $90, it's got more than enough options. It's got plenty of hard drive space. It's got lots and lots of airflow. It's got an amazing window on the side so you can show off all your components. And it's got more than one mounting option for a 240mm radiator if you want to go with an all-in-one cooling unit. You could put it on the top, you could put it behind the motherboard, or not behind the motherboard, but behind the hard drives, and it gives you a lot of flexibility for building a system. It's got great cable management, it's all black inside and out, and it's just a very sharp case. Now, with that said, if you want to go with a different case, as long as you keep it $90 or under, you're going to keep this build at $1,000 and you won't go over it. Choosing a case is very difficult. You have to look at it all the time. You look at it whenever you turn on your computer, and if you don't like the way it looks style-wise, then you're not going to feel as passionate about your computer as if you went with a case that just looked freaking badass. So just choose a case that you feel you like in that category, but check out the N600, it's definitely worth a look. Now, because we know that computers use a lot less energy than it's actually advertised on the recommended wattage from a lot of these companies, you know you can get away with a little bit smaller power supply than what some of the graphics card manufacturers actually recommend. Go and check out my video on how much power your computer is really using wattage-wise if you have no clue what I'm talking about. Now, with that said, I recommend going with the SeaSonic 620W. It's an 80 plus bronze rated power supply. It's semi-modular. You can take off cables that you don't need for peripherals, like extra hard drive cables, SATA cables, 4-pin Molex, whatever. But you are going to have the 24-pin and the CPU power pin and probably the PCI Express cables hard mounted to the power supply, and you can't take them off. But what does it matter? You can't run a computer without them anyway. So it's not a big deal going with semi-modular. Now, if you're familiar with the name SeaSonic at all, they make a lot of the power supplies on the market that get rebranded for other companies. So it's a true tried and tested brand that you can definitely put your confidence into and know that your computer is going to run efficient, and it's a quiet power supply, and it comes in at a great price. Now, the last piece in this build is kind of an optional piece. Many people are not using them anymore, myself included, and that being an optical drive. So for this build, I just chose a basic ASUS optical drive. It came in at about 20 bucks. If you want to save 20 bucks and you know how to install an operating system off of a flash drive, then be my guest and go ahead and do that. But it's nice to have an optical drive in your system if you're still trading discs or programs with other people, and are you doing disk backup or burning of movies or whatever, you're obviously going to need an optical drive. So that's a $20 part that's kind of optional. Now you may have noticed that we don't have an operating system listed in this build, and a lot of people may be screaming at the monitor saying right now, it's not $1,000, it's not $1,000 because you didn't include an operating system. Well, here's the bottom line. You have choices when it comes to operating systems. You could go with a Hackintosh, you could go with Linux, you could go with Windows, and you need to make the decision on what you're going to do for an operating system. Now, Linux is free, and it's starting to get a lot of support from gaming developers, and in the future we might start seeing some real Linux support. But for now, Windows is going to be your best bet. So if you have to go with Windows and you want to add $100 to this build. There are other ways of getting operating systems. I will never be an advocate for software piracy, so please don't ask me how you could get Windows or any other operating systems for free. I'm not going to help you, not even going to respond. So there you have it, guys. This has been my 2 cents on how I would spend $1,000 building a computer right now in November. Now, that's not to say this is a first-time builder's build or an experienced builder's build. This is where I think you're going to get the most bang for your buck for $1,000. So even if it was my $1,000 versus your $1,000, this is exactly how I would spend the cash. I know you're going to feel extremely overwhelmed on what to buy, which is why this holiday season I'm going to be bringing you a series covering every aspect of a computer, motherboards, processors, cases, keyboards, mice, and we're going to do complete buyer's guides on every single piece of a computer. And we've got a lot of companies that are actually chipping in some product here, so I can give you some first-hand examples and reviews of what you can expect when buying stuff right now this 2013 holiday season. So I'm going to get on out of here, guys. I've got some things to do. I'm going to play some Battlefield 4, and I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. You know what to do with it if you liked it. You also know what you can do with it if you didn't like it. And I'll see you guys next time on JayzTwoCents.